her grandfather was a German that went to Russia to farm for Catherine the Great. She invited some of the German, they call them German Russians, and they were over there for a while, and they did pretty well. And so they made them pull up roots and move, and there was a lot of discrimination, and the Bolsheviks came, and things weren't going too well, so they decided that they'd go somewhere better. And some of them have already come over, and some of them came to Kansas, and Anthony, Kansas seemed to be the place they like to come to. But her grandfather had a family at Manitou, Oklahoma. So here this Russian brought his wife and some children with him, and they came all the way over from Russia and bought a train ticket and came down, and when they got to Manitou, Oklahoma, in 1910, wasn't it, Kathy, something like that, they didn't have any money to their name, they didn't have any place to stay, but they had these friends, and it was kinfolks actually that come from up on the Volga River in Russia. So they got there, and he said, well, you can stay in our cellar. We had an old cellar down there. Everybody had one because we had a lot of tornadoes, you know. So they stayed in this cellar, and he said, now I'll get you a job. Of course, they only spoke German and a little Russian. And they came to America, and all the people spoke English, you know, and he had to learn it. So he got him a job, and the first day was out on a thrashing crew. And they got him to pitching bundles. Now, you know what that is? They have the bundles in the field, and they'd bring them on a wagon, and they had a pitchfork, and they'd throw them into the thrash machine. They had a chain they would drag them in, you know, and they'd thrash them. But you had to be really careful, because if you got too many in there, what would happen? You choke it down, you know. So here's this little Russian and Russian-German, and he's trying to pitch that in there. Of course, it's his first day on the job, and he wants to do a really good job, so he just keeps poking them in there. And his friend would translate, you know, and said, the foreman says, don't do that. It's going to choke the machine down. And finally, they just gave up. He was too energetic, and he thought they were trying to get him in trouble and make him look bad. So he managed, he said, just do all you can. So he threw it in there until he choked it down, you know, and they stopped it up, and they had a steam engine blowing it, and, you know, the steam blew, and the whistle blew, and everything, and it was a mess. So they began, and they only liked a little bit being done. It was a little bit raining, and it'd come a shower of rain. And they thought, well, we'll get this unchoked and maybe it'll dry up. Well, about the time they got the thing cleaned out, there was a cloud came up, and it just poured down through the little shed, and they all ran over in this and decided it was a corral. And there were several horses in there. And you know, when it gets stormy, it kind of agitates the horses sometime, and there was a stud horse in there, and he wasn't too happy. And he was running around there. So this thrashing crew, being as they were, began to take bets to see if anybody could ride that stud horse. Well, nobody came up. Well, this little Russian, her granddad, told that friend, said, tell him I'll ride that horse. Oh, you can't ride that horse. He said, yeah, I can ride that horse. Tell him I'll do it. So he told him he wants to ride the horse. And they all laughed and put some more money in the pot because they didn't think he possibly could do that. So this story was written by one of her cousins from the actual talking to these grandparents, and he wrote a 400-page book of stories, just like this in it. But anyway, they go out there, and he says, okay, what?
You tell the whole story.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you the rest of the story. 2 years from now, on this same night, we'll finish it. Well, anyway, he gets over and he jumps over the fence, and he has a halter in one hand, and he runs up beside this stud horse and catches him off guard, reaches under his head and grabs the left ear with his left hand and bites down on his right ear with his teeth. And those of you that deal with horses know that'll paralyze the horse. So he paralyzed the horse, and he's holding on to that, and he got that halter on, and I don't know how he did all that at once, but anyway, he did that, and he swung his leg up and got on that horse, and that horse ran around that lot. He was actually, and next thing you know, he jumped over the fence, and off they were going, and it rained that little shower, and you know, you've seen horse running, the mud just flying in the air, you know, and away they go. And they all laughed and thought, well, he'll never be back. We're going to win this bet. Well, about 20 minutes later, he came riding back in, and he won the money, and there was $50 in the pot. $50! It was so good, you know, and they all said, how in the world did you learn to ride back then? He said, I broke horses 3 years for the Russian cavalry. So anyway, finished the day, they got the thrashing done, moved the next field. He came home from his first day of work, went down in that cellar, and he told his wife, he said, Mama, what a country. He says, we just don't know how lucky we are. Here we can worship as we please. Nobody will persecute us. He says, we're free to do whatever we please because we came out of such horrible oppression over there. And he says, already I've worked one day, my first job, and I made more than I did in the whole year. Right.